our first examples are very similar to regular adding and subtracting fractions. We need to get that common denominator, and so we look at the denominators we have. I'm going to just rewrite this so that I have more space. I look at my numbers in the bottom. This one has a 7, this one has a 3. In order to be the same, this one's going to need a 7 and a 7, and this one's going to need a 3. And if you multiply the bottom by 3, you're going to need to multiply the top by 3, because technically what I'm doing in the green is I'm multiplying by 7 over 7, which is multiplying by 1. What happens to a number when you multiply by 1? It stays the same. So we're keeping the numbers the same, just changing the way that they look. And we're changing the way that they look so that we can work with them easy. Also in the denominator, we notice that the second fraction has an x and the first one doesn't. So the first one's going to need an x and an x as well. What that gives us is a common denominator of 21x here and 21x here. The top now is 6x squared and 35. And so our final answer the rule for adding fractions, once you have that common denominator, is you add the numerators together. And the numerators are not like terms. So the best we can do is just write 6x squared plus 35. And here we have to be careful, because you will be tempted to simplify. Some of you might be tempted to go, oh, I can divide 6 and 21 both by 3. Should I simplify those fractions? Remember, we can only simplify if we're multiplying. Things that are added together, technically, this 6x squared plus 35 is one factor. And the only way anything can cancel out in that factor is if you have something identical on the bottom. So if this could be simplified, we would have to factor it even more. But in the top, there is no common factor between 6 and 35. The top cannot be factored. And it is not identical to the bottom. So this is simplified. This is one of the hardest things in this unit, is you will be tempted to simplify when you are not allowed. And to break it down easily is that we can simplify if we're multiplying. And you can only simplify factors if they're the same. When things are added, the added things get grouped together to be one factor. So 6x squared plus 35 is considered one factor at this moment, and unless it's identical on the bottom, you cannot simplify. I will say that over and over and over again, and you will continue to make those mistakes over and over and over again. So hopefully, if we keep working on this and keep saying it, we'll eventually get to the point where, like, okay, we start to make those mistakes less and less. For part B, I'll rewrite it here. 4, 5ab minus 3 over 4b squared. So we can kind of think about working with the numbers first and the variables second. So with the numbers, with 5 and 4, that's like your normal adding and subtracting fractions. If I wanted them to be the same, I hope that you can see that 20 would be your common denominator, which means that this one needs to get multiplied by 4, and this one needs to get multiplied by 5. So we'd also have to multiply the top by those things as well. That will make my numbers the same. I also need to make my variables the same. So when I look at my variables, is there anything missing in the first one as far as variables? Yes. The second one has a b squared. This one just has a b. So we're going to need another b on the top and the bottom. When I look at the second one, it doesn't have the A. So I'm going to need an A on the top and the bottom. What that will give me is 4 times 5 is 20. I'll have an A and a B squared. 4 times 5 is 20. I'll have an A and a B squared. And now my denominators are the same. On the top, here I would have 16b. Here I would have 15a. So once we have our common denominator, our mathematical rule for fractions is we just need to subtract the tops, the bottom, or the denominator would stay the same. So it's going to be 20ab squared. The top is two terms that are not like terms, so we can't put them together. The best we can do is just write 16b minus 15a. Can we simplify anything? This gets grouped together as one factor. When I look at that factor in the top, there's nothing in common that I can pull out. So nothing would simplify here. And again, that is going to be part that's going to be tricky.
It was quiet. Oh yeah. Good compasses in the building.
Yes.
I've got the ruler ones.
Sarah bought a whole bunch. And Allie, real compasses. Sarah and Allie. I don't know where Sarah's would be. Sounds good. Okay, questions for practice on this one are 3, 4, and 5.